Oral questions by members.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've become aware through the announcements yesterday about the state of the province finances that roughly $5 billion of employers' health tax, sales tax, and other taxes have been deferred with collection expected during the fall, we understand in late September. Now, this is going to be a very onerous expectation for small businesses all over British Columbia, which have been living on fumes, to put it politely, for 4 months now. So the question goes to the Finance Minister, does she anticipate full collection of the outstanding amounts of all of these different taxes from small businesses in British Columbia this fall?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Leader of the Opposition for the question. I want to begin by first saying thank you. To say thank you to the incredible businesses, the workers, the people of British Columbia who have done an extraordinary job when it comes to bending the curve, when it comes to paying attention to Dr. Bonnie Henry. We all know that the very best economic recovery that we can have is a smart, careful restart to be able to build that confidence. The member asked specifically about one of the initiatives that we have put in place for businesses. I know I'll have an opportunity to talk about many more of those, including the tax cuts we have given. In fact, when it comes to property tax, we have in fact made a cut of 25%, $700 million that is not repayable in the supports for businesses. When it comes to the taxes we've deferred them till the end of September, and that'll be reviewed as we go through the summer.
Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, the minister is correct in terms of the Ministry of Health's function and what Dr. Henry has guided us to, which is a pretty good place in terms of the level of viral load in the province of British Columbia and the prevalence of cases, in which we lead the continent and possibly the world. However, it doesn't answer the question for the hundreds of thousands of small businesses in British Columbia who will want to know urgently whether they are expected to remit the full outstanding sum of taxes due on September 30th. So it's a very simple question to the Finance Minister, and it's in her ministry, not the Ministry of Health. Will full payment be expected from all small businesses in British Columbia on September 30th or not?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And as I've already said to the Leader of the Opposition, that will be reviewed well before we get to September 30th. Businesses have suggested a number of ideas. Ideas are coming forward through the economic recovery process as well to add to the supports that we've already put in place for businesses. As I said, the cut that we've made in property taxes, the support that we've provided through hydro bill forgiveness for businesses, the support we put in place around evictions for the commercial tenants who were in buildings where the landlords weren't applying for the support. So we have a whole range of support for businesses. The deferrals are one, and we'll be looking at those over the next months.
Member Abbotsford West.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. So yesterday, the Finance Minister presented an update that was unprecedented in our province's history, including a staggering, I think that was her word, not mine, and record-setting deficit. And for all of that, I think British Columbians understand the circumstances that have led us to this point today. But they also understand that the situation is not sustainable. It is not sustainable for families, hundreds of thousands of families and young people who are out of work. It is not sustainable for small businesses in the tourism sector that are on the verge of closing their door forever. And actually, it's not even sustainable for the government itself to continue to rack up debt at the pace we are presently seeing. But here's what people don't understand. They don't understand why the Finance Minister was silent on the issue of how we're going to get out of this and how we're going to rebuild our economy. In her presentation yesterday, she dedicated one of 25 slides to the topic of economic recovery. And what did that say? And what did she have to say? Well, she promised more meetings, more consultation, and maybe, just maybe, an announcement sometime in the fall. Mr. Speaker, that's not good enough. That's simply not good enough. British Columbians can't wait 2 more months for a recovery plan to lift us out of circumstances that are clearly unsustainable. Where's the plan?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Well, in fact, I would say to the member, as the member well knows, that everything we are doing is about economic recovery. If we did not put in place the plan to be able to keep people safe, to be able to address the healthcare crisis, there would be no economic recovery. If we did not put in place $5 billion to be able to support people with immediate relief for people and for businesses, there would be no economic recovery. If we did not put in place a safe restart plan so that we can build confidence for people to go back out again, to go to businesses, to go to restaurants, and make sure that was being done safely, we won't have any economic recovery in this process. And is there another payment of $1.5 billion? Yes, there is. And we're asking British Columbians to engage with us, just as other sectors have. And I look forward to those dollars coming out in addition to the dollars, as we announced yesterday, that we put in place to make sure we have a long-term sustainable restart process and economic recovery in British Columbia.
Member Abbotsford West on a supplemental.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm afraid that kind of answer will be cold comfort to the thousands of businesses that are facing huge tax-deferred bills coming due this September, for which the Minister refuses to provide an answer. Families are facing work uncertainty or outright unemployment, and actually, if they happen to live in a condo, the situation is even worse for reasons we have been discussing in this House. And actually, the government's own ability to continue providing support to individuals is steadily eroding. And the Minister knows that as well. Our collective hope lies in successfully reigniting our economy. But on that fundamentally important issue, the government, the Finance Minister, the Premier remain silent, Mr. Speaker. How are people supposed to have any faith in a recovery plan, so entitled, that promises nothing except more meetings and maybe an announcement in the fall?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. I would say to the member, how do you ignite the economy if people don't feel safe? How do you ignite the economy if you're not dealing with bending the curve, as we have been able to do in British Columbia because of the people of this province? How do you ignite the economy if people are not feeling safe to go out to businesses, and businesses and workers don't feel safe to get their businesses going? Everything we have been doing through the pandemic is about economic recovery, member. We have been focused on making sure we do this well, that we do this safely. We have an additional $1.5 billion that will be put in place as well. We certainly saw glimmers of hope when it came to the June employment numbers. 40% of the jobs that have been lost since February are now back again. Again, you're seeing more people get back into the workforce. The signs are positive. The people of British Columbia are going to stand together. And I'd ask the member and the members on the other side to join us in being positive about the economy and supporting the people of British Columbia and making sure that we're able to do just as we did through the pandemic, come out the other side with a strong recovery here in British Columbia.
House Leader, third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. At one point in time, the BC NDP were highly critical of the greenhouse gas emissions from LNG. As a government, they have rightfully criticized the Trans Mountain Pipeline as being too risky a proposition and have suggested that Clean BC will be the driving force for how the government makes recovery funding decisions. An expanded oil and gas industry is not where the future of our economy lies. It creates stranded assets and disappearing jobs. My question for you, Honourable Speaker, is to the Minister of Finance. Will she commit to not spending any of the $1.5 billion in recovery funding on subsidies to the fossil fuel industry?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. We certainly do have a long road ahead of us. There's no question. The pandemic has profoundly impacted our province and profoundly impacted the people and the businesses and the economy of British Columbia. But we also know that as we rebuild, we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to make sure we're doing it with the values that matter to British Columbians. And of course, those values mean building an innovative, sustainable economy for the long term in British Columbia. It means helping people get the training and the education that they need to be able to get the jobs that will be available in British Columbia. It means making sure we're investing in cleaner transportation and cleaner projects in British Columbia. So I can assure the member that the funding is going to be used and earmarked, in fact, for a sustainable economy. We've made that statement, both the Premier and I, and it certainly will as well be used to be able to move ahead on our Clean BC project. So we share those values as caucuses. We also share those values, I believe, with British Columbians, and we have an opportunity through economic recovery to do just that.
House Leader, third party on a supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm going to take that as a hopeful yes. There won't be any spending on subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, but I'll frame it again in a more of a positive. Throughout this pandemic, BC has been a global leader, has been seen as a global leader in our response, showcasing that when we agree to work together towards an objective, we actually are able to achieve it. And by working together with the Green Caucus, this minority government has put together one of the continent's leading climate plans with Clean BC, which has been recognized as an economic plan. And the Premier has repeatedly pointed to the role it will have in recovery. Just yesterday, the Minister of Environment said it will be at the heart of the recovery. The Minister of Finance just said that in her response. These are encouraging signs, but words are not enough. The $1.5 billion earmarked for a recovery must be spent on a green recovery package that will not just revitalize, but actually transform our economy. My questions for you, Honourable Speaker, is again to the Minister of Finance. Can her government commit to spending at least $500 million of the $1.5 billion in recovery funding to directly accelerate or expand Clean BC in order to create clean jobs across the province?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. There is no question that I expect that a significant amount of the recovery funding that we have will be used in meeting our climate goals and in the work that we're doing with Clean BC. And I want to also express my appreciation for the work that we've done with the Green Caucus, with the member for Oak Bay Gordon Head around Clean BC. There is no question that is world leading when we come to the work that we've been doing. We've invested over $1.3 billion in the Clean BC strategy over the last couple of budgets, and we know how important it is to make sure we're doing everything we can to move that ahead. We're continuing to engage. As the member knows, we've had extraordinary proposals come forward for a number of groups across the province, including many that have come forward around the sustainable agenda and the opportunity to look at sustainability. So it just reinforces the fact that we are already putting Clean BC and a sustainable economy front and center as part of our recovery plan, and I'm looking forward to going through those proposals and being able to act on them in the fall.
Member Oak Bay Gordon Head.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, many Indigenous communities in British Columbia anticipated being able to sell surplus electricity to BC Hydro. Despite this government's professed commitment to reconciliation, the decision by BC Hydro to cancel its standing offer program has placed these communities in a very difficult position. As I'm sure the Minister is aware, reconciliation is a multifaceted process that involves building genuine, long-lasting economic partnerships with Indigenous communities. Otherwise, many such communities will continue to struggle economically. More recently, Honourable Speaker, with the proposed changes to the self-sufficiency clause in the Clean Energy Act, First Nations aspiring to become clean energy producers will be dealt yet another serious blow. My question through you, Honourable Speaker, is to the Minister of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources. How can this government claim that it is committed to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, while at the same time introducing measures that will restrict their opportunities for economic development?
Minister, Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources.
I want to thank the member for Oak Bay Gordon Head for his question. And let's begin by remembering that the old government signed insider deals for power at 5 times the market price. That created a $16 billion obligation owed by British Columbians. That's $16 billion in unnecessary costs. We are committed to keeping BC Hydro rates low and building a low-carbon economy for people. Maintaining affordable electricity is critical to electrifying our economy and meeting our Clean BC goals. The Standing Offer program was not compatible with this. Our government understands, and I acknowledge the import of the member's question, that many Indigenous communities view small-scale private power as economic development opportunities. Indeed, when we suspended the Standing Offer program in February 2019, we exempted 5 projects in development that had significant First Nations involvement. I agree with the member that it's important to support Indigenous communities in clean energy economic development. And just last month, we announced $13 million for 4 clean energy projects to help remote communities get off diesel.
Member Oak Bay Gordon Head on a supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm not sure what there's clearly a joke happening on opposite here. I'm not sure. Please share it with me later. Honourable Speaker, over the last decade, numerous First Nations have banked heavily on clean energy projects as an economic development strategy. Many have entered into agreements with independent power producers to do the same. On Vancouver Island, for example, Honourable Speaker, 13 of the 14 Nuchaldath First Nations are either current or prospective stakeholders in the renewable energy products. The Tlaikowiat Nation has poured over $50 million into clean energy projects and have plans to spend an additional $100 million. Successful endeavours such as the Tsuut'ina Nation solar farm in the Premier's own riding have helped get Indigenous nations off diesel, while others have received financial backing from the government promised to do the same. For many Indigenous communities across British Columbia, the opportunity to sell excess electricity is a vital component of their future economic plans. My question once more through you, Honourable Speaker, is to the Minister of Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources. Will the Minister instruct BC Hydro to declare force majeure on the existing Site C construction contracts as opposed to the IPP contracts, to save billions upon billions of ratepayer dollars, and instead instruct BC Hydro to issue calls for power at market rate for any future power needs, and to remind the Minister, market rate is not 20 cents a kilowatt hour, is not 15 cents a kilowatt hour, it is a few cents a kilowatt hour, as is demonstrated worldwide with the price of solar and wind being lower than the price of coal and natural gas combustion in most jurisdictions.
Minister, Energy, Mines and Petroleum Resources.
Once again, I'd like to thank the member for Oak Bay Gordon Head for his question. As a government, we are committed to working collaboratively with Indigenous communities on opportunities for economic development. We consulted widely, including engagement with Indigenous nations, on the BC Hydro Phase 2 interim report, which includes the proposal on the self-sufficiency requirement. And I think it's important to note that the changes that we are proposing will not happen overnight. They will allow BC Hydro to consider out-of-province energy as one option among many to providing clean and affordable energy as part of their next 20-year plan. These changes support our climate plan, Clean BC, and they allow BC Hydro to continue purchasing power from First Nations-owned projects. My ministry has a wide range of programs that support Indigenous communities to transition to clean energy and improve energy efficiency. For example, we've invested $5 million in the BC Indigenous Clean Energy Initiative. This initiative supports community clean energy projects. I appreciate the members' questions on this important topic. Our government will continue to work with Indigenous communities to identify clean energy opportunities.
Member Kamloops North Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, we asked the Minister of Housing about 2 Victoria small businesses, Paul's Diner and All About Hugh Hair Salon. These 2 businesses have been destroyed as a direct result of the Minister's decision to buy the hotels for housing. These businesses lease space in these hotels, Mr. Speaker, and BC Housing is refusing to allow them to break their lease. When we asked the Minister, on behalf of these business owners, what she was going to do for them, she was combative and dismissive of their concerns. The minister has had a couple of days to come up with real answers for owners Cliff and Lindsay, so I'll ask the minister again. To the Minister of Housing, what is she going to do to fix these situations?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to be very clear with the members opposite that we have offered to maintain these leases, Honourable Speaker. We were very clear that we were happy to keep both of these tenants. We've done that in other buildings where we have commercial tenants, where we've purchased the buildings. They're absolutely welcome to continue to stay.
Member Kamloops North Thompson on a supplemental.
Wow. Mr. Speaker, to be very clear for the minister, the problem is the businesses do not want to stay. The businesses do not want to be held to their lease. The businesses had operating businesses inside hotels with regular traveling clientele coming and going. Now they are homeless shelters. They do not want to continue to operate there, and BC Housing is refusing to allow them to leave, which is bankrupting them. We are asking these questions, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the real people and local entrepreneurs who've lost tens of thousands of dollars and who've had to let go dozens of staff. To quote Cliff, the owner of Paul's Diner, "We employ people with meaningful work, support local farms, and donate food to the homeless and those marginalized. The government is ruining a business that is an important part of the solution." End quote. So again to the minister, perhaps now she understands their concerns. Again to the minister, what will she do to solve the problem she's created and compensate Cliff and Lindsay?
Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And again, I want to let the members of the House know that we are prepared to work with everybody around this. And if these tenants feel that they cannot sustain their business or work with BC Housing, we're absolutely prepared to work with them to create a transition for them.
Member Columbia River Revelstoke.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Every day, the Minister of Tourism says, we're listening and working on a plan. But Mr. Speaker, tourism operators need a plan right now. Here's what John Wilson of Wilson Transportation had to say, and I quote, 75 to 85% of our revenue stream is made from April through September, and that season is pretty much gone. To make it through the fall and winter, so many will require continual or added support from government. So, Mr. Speaker, my question yet again to the Minister of Tourism. After over 16 weeks of waiting, when can operators like John Wilson expect to see an actual recovery plan? Give John a date.
Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I want to thank the member opposite for the question. We have the same goals for tourism. We both want to see a strong and resilient tourism sector here in our province. And as the Minister of Finance spoke earlier, every action we've taken to date is to ensure that we have that economic recovery in place here. Through our economic recovery process, our government is focusing on a strong, coordinated provincial approach, and we're focusing on supporting people and making sure that they're able to access the supports and the services that they need. And we are working with industry leaders and the public as well to make sure that we develop a recovery plan that will help ensure our businesses, including the tourism sector, come back strong, come back resilient. So I've been working closely with the tourism sector over these past months. We've been able to provide a number of reliefs that the sector has personally asked for, such as wholesale liquor pricing, supporting patio expansions, creating a program to help displaced tourism workers find jobs, flexibility in grant funding that they've been having. We are addressing the needs directly from the sector. And I'm going to continue working closely with the sector and with those leaders as we go through our COVID-19 action plan and we move towards recovery together.
Columbia River Revelstoke on a supplemental.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, that's cold comfort, no date and no plans. Many interior communities have seen tourism hit hard over the last few years from forest fires and flooding. And that means the number of visitors have dropped dramatically and small businesses have already been suffering. And now add COVID-19 and many of these businesses may have to close their doors permanently. As part of the economic recovery plan, if one ever comes, is the tourism minister prepared to accelerate tourism-related infrastructure projects immediately?
Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thanks to the member for the question. There's absolutely no doubt that the tourism sector has been impacted, extremely hard by the COVID pandemic, and that's why our government has set aside $1.5 billion for economic recovery. We want to support economic resilience, business recovery. We want to help people whose livelihoods have been impacted by the pandemic. And I'm going to keep working with the industry leaders as we work towards recovery together and listen to their ideas. And we've been taking action. And we will continue to take action. We're going to update our tourism strategic framework and Destination BC's corporate strategy. We're going to continue to support destination development and implement key tourism experiences and infrastructure projects, as the minister or as the member was mentioning. These can include everything from trails and cycling networks, or it could be arts and culture installations. It could be accessible infrastructure. All these pieces will drive demand. They'll create jobs, and they'll help increase tourism here in our province. We're going to continue to be nimble with our provincial marketing funding. We want to protect our international spaces. We want to encourage all British Columbians to travel throughout the province, and we want to maintain BC's global competitive edge. And so I'm going to keep working with the sector. I'm going to keep working with industry leaders as we work together to find the best way to move forward for develop a strong, resilient tourism sector as we move towards recovery. Thank you.
Member North Vancouver Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month, the official opposition wrote to the Premier about the worsening opioid crisis. And May was the deadliest month in this province history, and we offered 4 immediate steps the Premier could take to help make an impact. One of those steps was the implementation of a prescription drug monitoring program to help prevent cases of addiction in the first place. To the Premier, will he be implementing a prescription drug monitoring program?
Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. We are, in fact, implementing a prescription monitoring system. We've been working very closely with the College of Physicians and Surgeons for about a year and a half now on this program and other improvements around prescription medication in order to keep people safe. And as I have reported to this House previously in answer to previous questions, in January 2019, we signed a contract with the College of Physicians and Surgeons. We've learned from our experience with PharmaNet that these types of systems absolutely need buy-in from prescribers and from pharmacists, and that's why we've been doing this in close partnership with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, the College of Pharmacists, the College of Nursing Professionals, the College of Dental Surgeons of BC, Naturopathic Physicians, College of Midwives, and the BC Coroner Service. And work on the planning of this project is now complete. We're moving towards implementation. There's a lot of work ahead to establish the program, but we are moving forward. And Honourable Speaker, I do want to be clear, and the College of Physicians and Surgeons has certainly said this very, very clearly, that there are limitations to the prescription monitoring program and the prescription review program in combating the opioid crisis. Primary prevention is only one line of attack. As the member knows, we've been working on a wide variety of programs related to prevention, but he says neither the prescription review program nor the creation of a prescription monitoring program will be the sole solution to this complex public health emergency. But we are working on it. We're at the implementation stage. It is moving ahead.
Member North Vancouver Seymour on a supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, since we first raised this issue, more than 1,900 people have died in British Columbia. So we would like to know whether or not the minister or the Premier is going to act quicker so that we can prevent more deaths.
Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member. And just to refer back to what the College of Physicians and Surgeons said, that program is about prevention, but it is not a quick fix. And I've spoken to this issue in the House yesterday, Honourable Speaker, and I will refer to it again. The coroner has been absolutely crystal clear, so has the provincial health officer, that the principal reason for the spike in overdose deaths in this province is because we are dealing with a drug supply, a street drug supply, not first and foremost prescription meds, which is a primary cause in some other places, some parts of the United States. In our province at this time, the spike is due to a drug supply that is seeing combinations of drugs, very high concentrations of fentanyl, sometimes mixed with benzodiazepines, that are a direct result. And so, Honourable Speaker, we have been working to prevent deaths. We rolled out within a couple of weeks of the pandemic being declared a new risk mitigation program in order to get safe prescription medications out to people to separate them from the illegal drug supply. But at the same time, Honourable Speaker, we are working on building the continuum of care. Because we know that it's critical to have all of these pieces in place: harm reduction and safe supply, treatment and prevention, enforcement. All of those are the pillars of our drug response. And I want to give just one example, Honourable Speaker, because the First Nations Health Authority and the coroner released a report last month that showed for Indigenous people, the death rate has gone up, is 5.6% of the population at large. And that's why we are working in very close partnership with the First Nations Health Authority, Honourable Speaker, on on renovating and rebuilding 6 Indigenous treatment centres, 2 new urban Indigenous treatment centres, mental health and wellness programs, land-based healing, and a number of other initiatives. They're part of the continuum of care that we need to be building and that we are building at the same time as we try and keep people safe from overdose and prevent more people from tragically dying.
The bell ends question period.